So this week's format's going to be a little bit different. I think this is how it's going to be more often, with a webcam and me actually speaking to you. This week we're talking about 10 of the strangest disappearances available on the internet. So these are all cases you can Google. I'll have the links in the notes below if you'd like to check out articles about them. Yeah, so here we go. Maura Murray. So this case has gotten a lot of media attention through the social media age. It was considered the first missing persons case of the social media age. So it's gotten a lot of coverage in top 10 videos and a lot of big YouTubers who do stuff like this. But it's still one of the most interesting to me personally, so I figured I'd put it in the list. Maura Murray was a nursing student at UMass Amherst who on February 9, 2004 vanished without a trace on a snowy road a few towns away. Murray told his supervisor that she'd be out of town for a week due to a death in the family, although the family denied any knowledge of a death in the months after her disappearance. At 2:05 p.m., she called a number to look into booking a hotel in Stowe, Vermont, and at 2:18, she called her boyfriend saying they would talk later in her voicemail and hung up after 1 minute. At 3:40 p.m., she withdrew $280 from an ATM alone and purchased around $40 worth of alcohol, as well as an accident report form from the local DMV. Murray then left Amherst between 4 and 5 p.m. and called to check her voicemail at 4:37 p.m., which was the last recorded use of her cell phone. Sometime around 7 o'clock p.m., she crashed her car into a snowbank along Route 112. A local resident reported the accident to the police at 7:27 p.m. A school bus driver passed the accident shortly after, offering her help, but Maura declined and begged them not to call the cops, claiming she had already called AAA. At 7:46, Haverhill police arrived on the scene, but Murray had disappeared and the car was locked. Alcohol stains were found to be both inside and outside of the car and a damaged box of wine in the back seat, but Murray had vanished without a trace. Her case was deemed the first crime mystery of the social media age, and Facebook was only 5 days old when she vanished into thin air. Law enforcement are no closer to solving her case to this day. Andrew Gosden. On 14th of September 2007, a 14-year-old Andrew Gosden left his house in Doncaster, South Yorkshire, withdrew €200 from his bank account and was never seen again. At 8:30 a.m., Gosden departed from his home and was seen heading down Littlemore Lane towards Westfield Park on a neighbor's CCTV. He then walked to Doncaster railway station and purchased a one-way ticket to London, which cost £31.40. The ticket seller later recalled that she had told Gosden a return ticket cost just 50p more, but he insisted on purchasing a single ticket. At 9:35 a.m., Gosden was seen boarding the train to King's Cross Station alone. A woman reported sitting next to Gosden, whom she described as being quiet and engrossed in playing with his video game. When he missed his morning classes, the school attempted to contact Gosden's parents, but left a voicemail on a wrong number instead. That's crazy to me. So your kid's missing, you try to contact the school, but instead of contacting the appropriate people, you leave a voicemail on the wrong number. How do you fuck that up? Honestly, all you have to do is Google the number, and then boom, there it is. That part was always really weird to me. Gosden arrived at King's Cross Station at 11:20 a.m. He was captured on CCTV, leaving the main entrance to the station at 11:25 a.m. This was the last confirmed sighting of him. Investigators tracked his PSP and Xbox, as well as any PCs he may have used at his school, but no activity was found, and the case remains cold to this day. Virginia Dare. So this one's actually a little bit older. About a little bit, I mean the 1500s. So this has to do with the lost colony of Roanoke. If you don't know much about the lost colony of Roanoke, I'll add notes in the description that you can go check out for yourself. Virginia Dare was the first English child born in the colony of Roanoke in what's now modern-day North Carolina. In 1586, after enduring winter hardships, lack of food, and disagreements with the Indians, survivors of Roanoke returned to England with Sir Francis Drake. Then Sir Walter Raleigh decided to send a second group of colonists. A month later, on August 27th, John White, who was an English colonial governor, explorer, artist, and cartographer, set sail to England for supplies but was caught in combat with the Spanish and could not return to Roanoke for 3 years. When he reached Roanoke Island on August 18, 1590, the colony was empty, with all 120 settlers gone without a trace. So I didn't do a very good job of explaining who John White was. John White was the governor who made the trip with them. He was kind of the leader of the expedition. So supplies were scarce, and White decided to return to the UK to get more supplies and stuff and come back to Roanoke to help them survive. I had a whole thing that I said, but I'm just going to cut it all out because it was stupid. So anyways, on to the next one. The Mary Celeste. Again, this one's pretty old. This is the late 1800s. If you've never heard the story of the Mary Celeste, again, I'll have some notes in the description that you can read about. This story is really, really interesting. So here we go. The Mary Celeste was an American merchant brigantine built on Spencer's Island in Nova Scotia and launched as Amazon in 1861. She was transferred to American ownership and registration in 1868 when she was acquired her new name. She was transferred to American ownership and registration in 1868 when she acquired her new name. Thereafter, she sailed uneventfully until her voyage in 1872. She was found deserted in the Atlantic Ocean off the Azores Island on December 4, 1872 by the Canadian brigantine Belgradia in fair condition on the open ocean, under partial sail and missing a lifeboat. The final entry in her log was dated 10 days earlier. She had left New York City for Genoa on 7th November and was still full of her provisions when she was found, with a full cargo of alcohol and the captain's quarters undisturbed, but those on board were never seen or heard from again. At the salvage hearings in Gibraltar following her recovery, the court's officers considered various possibilities of foul play, including mutiny by Mary Celeste's crew, piracy by the Belgradia crew or others, and conspiracy to carry out insurance or salvage fraud. Which, why would you try to commit fraud on this old shitty boat? Like, wouldn't you get $10 off of it? Like, it seems a bit weird to commit fraud on some old raggedy ass boat in the middle of the ocean. By leaving it in the middle of the ocean, like, I'm gonna leave this boat deserted. We're all gonna get on a lifeboat and just fuck off and leave it, and we're going to get money from it? That doesn't even make sense. No convincing evidence supported these theories, but unresolved suspicions led to a relatively low salvage award. The inconclusive nature of the hearings fostered continued speculation as the nature of the mystery and the story has repeatedly been complicated by false detail and fantasy. Hypotheses that have been advanced include the effects of the crew on alcohol fumes rising from the cargo, submarine earthquakes, water spouts, attacks by a giant squid, okay, and paranormal intervention, although nothing has been determined and the incident faded into obscure history. Michaela Bailey. So this story is straight up terrifying. So if you have kids, I know they have a cell phone in this day and age. Please use a tracking device on their phones. You know where they are. Anyways, let's get into it. On the morning of April 12th, 2016, Michaela Bailey's grandmother drove her to school, arriving around 8:20 a.m. CCTV footage shows her putting a binder inside her locker at 8:21 a.m. and leaving the school through the back entrance at 8:30 a.m. She was next seen by a surveillance camera walking southeast along the railroad tracks. The clerk of Terry's Pawn and Bargain, a local pawn shop, told police that between 8:40 and 8:50 a.m., Bailey attempted to pawn a silver ring. However, being of low value, she did not make her an offer. Shortly thereafter, between 8:50 and 8:55 a.m., she was seen at the aforementioned TD Bank withdrawing $55 from her account. After she left, surveillance footage shows her at 9 a.m. walking east on Broadway Street. At around 9:10 a.m., cameras show her entering a combined Tim Hortons Wendy's restaurant where she buys a drink and then sits down at a table. She can be seen using her phone, seemingly taking it apart at one point and putting it back together. At 9:23 a.m., after less than 15 minutes, she leaves the restaurant, re-enters almost immediately, and goes out through another exit. Over the next 25 minutes, she was spotted by several cameras near the restaurant. At 9:49 a.m., she enters the restaurant again. This time she sits down at another table. Over the next 20 minutes, she can be seen using her phone repeatedly, sending text messages and making what appear to be lengthy phone calls. At 10:12 a.m., she sends a text message to a friend saying, "Hey, I need help," but after a couple of minutes, she texts, "Never mind, I figured it out." She is seen leaving the restaurant again, only to re-enter shortly after. At 10:43 a.m., she walks over to an elderly lady and starts a short conversation. Police were able to identify the woman, who told them that Bailey had asked her for help in renting a hotel room, which she declined. And really, I don't blame her, because if some random person walked up to me in a Tim Hortons, again, I don't know what Tim Hortons is. I'm from the deep south. I have no idea what Tim Hortons is. If somebody walked up to me in a public place, some rando walked up to me and said, "Hey, will you help me rent a hotel room?" I'd probably say hell no too, because that's suspect as hell. Even if it's a teenage girl, I definitely wouldn't. That's suspect. Hell no. After ending the conversation, Bailey uses her telephone again and quickly leaves the restaurant, this time for good. After leaving Tim Hortons, cameras show her at 10:45 a.m. walking on West Broadway East. She is then seen a little later at the local STC bus stop. There she inquired where the next bus to Regina would leave. When she learned the bus would leave at 5 o'clock p.m., she left the bus station without purchasing a ticket. According to the employee, this occurred sometime between 10 o'clock a.m. and 12 o'clock p.m., but based on the available surveillance footage, this time period can be narrowed down to sometime between 11 o'clock a.m. and 11:45 a.m. At 11:35 a.m., she sent another text message to her friend saying, "I'll see you at lunch." And at 11:59 a.m., she re-enters her high school but meets only with two other students in the school cafeteria. They confirmed that she had told them about plans to take a bus to Regina for vacation. Cameras show her leaving the school at 12:03 p.m. The next time she was seen was at the Trail Stop restaurant where she ordered lunch. This restaurant was attached to the aforementioned bus depot. According to eyewitnesses, she left the restaurant between 1 o'clock and 1:45 p.m., but after that, no one remembers seeing her, and she does not appear on any other surveillance footage. Bailey's phone was turned off at 6:51 the next morning, and she hasn't used any of her social media since that day. So this one you've probably heard of if you've been keeping up with true crime and stuff since the early 2010s. This is actually the first missing persons case that I remember watching on YouTube way back in 2014, 2015 on Planet Dolan. So it's just a really interesting case. And like I said, this is what got me into true crime and what kind of started me watching YouTube instead of watching television and stuff. So let's get into it. Lars Mittank. On June 30th, 2014, 28-year-old Mittank traveled with 5 of his friends to Varna, Bulgaria. The group vacationed at the Golden Sands, a seaside resort just outside of the city of Varna. Tim Schultz, a friend with Mittank during the trip, said that Mittank did not eat much and that he would only have a small bowl of soup or a small salad at a time. His friends reported no additional abnormal behavior by Mittank until the final part of the trip. On July 6, 2014, the day before they were supposed to return home, Mittank and friends were at a bar in town, and Mittank got into a disagreement with some other German nationals over football. Mittank, a fan of the football club, and I'm going to butcher this word, so if you're German, sorry, Werder Bremen, had differences with fans of Bayern Munich. Now, I know where Munich is. I know that Munich is a place in Germany. In a Steven Spielberg movie. Then he parted from his friends outside a restaurant after leaving the bar and disappeared for the rest of the night. Mittank turned up at the resort the following morning and told his friends he was beaten up by 4 men hired by the group in the bar who he disagreed with the night before. The fight resulted in Mittank suffering an injured jaw and a ruptured eardrum. He went and saw a doctor who advised him not to fly due to his injury and prescribed him the antibiotic Cefprozil. It was 500 milligrams of Cefprozil. I'm not sure what that is, but it's 500 milligrams if you know what that is. Mittank's friends wanted to stay with him, but he insisted he was fine on his own and told them to follow the original travel plan and fly home on July 7th, which they did. Mittank checked out of the resort at the same time as his friends and checked into the hotel Varna for one night. The hotel was cheap and close to the airport. However, a day after his friends left, he began to act paranoid. While at the motel, Mittank called his mother, Sandra Mittank. In a whisper, he told her that people were trying to kill or rob him and that she should cancel his credit cards. The CCTV security cameras in the hotel recorded him pacing up and down the halls, looking out windows and hiding in an elevator. At 1 a.m., he left the hotel before returning an hour later. It's not known what he did in the intervening period, but in the morning he once again called his mother, telling her that the people pursuing him were getting closer. Yikes. Mittank was last seen at Varna Airport on July 8, 2014, the day he was hoping to fly home to Germany. He texted his mother that he arrived at the airport. He went to consult with the airport doctor, Dr. Kosta Kostov. Nice name. Kostov would later describe his behaviors as nervous and erratic. And according to Kostov, he told Mittank that he was fine and could return home. However, Mittank did not leave his office, expressing doubt about the medication that he was taking. At that time, a construction worker entered the office. The airport was undergoing renovation at the time. Kostov said that Mittank then began to tremble. He yelled, "I don't want to die here. I have to get out of here." He then got up and fled the office. He left behind all of his luggage, which included his wallet, cell phone, and passport. He was captured by airport security cameras fleeing the terminal. Once outside, it can be seen on the footage jogging away from the airport, climbing a fence, running into a meadow, and sprinting off camera in the direction of an adjacent forest near Bulgarian National Highway A2. These are his last confirmed whereabouts, and nothing's been heard of him since. Like, damn, imagine getting beat up in a bar over football teams. Couldn't imagine, honestly. Couldn't imagine I care about anything that much. Brandon Lawson. So you might know this from my TikTok shorts. Some of you did come from TikTok to YouTube to watch the deep dive versions of the stuff that I posted there. Heads up, I will be posting on TikTok again. I will continue the TikTok shorts. I've just been really focused on making YouTube content lately. But there will be more content on TikTok coming soon, so be sure to stick around. Follow right here. I'll put it somewhere in this area if you'd like to follow my TikTok, where I do 15-30 second shorts, something like that, about just crimes and all kinds of history based stuff. Same stuff we do on the channel, but that's the short version. And then later in the week we do the deep dives here on YouTube, so check it out. On the night of August 9th, 2013, Brandon Lawson arrived at his home in San Angelo, Texas after failing to come home the night before. This led to an argument with his girlfriend, Ladessa Lofton, who was suspicious that Brandon was intoxicated, given his history with substance abuse, although he had been clean for 6 months. Around 22:30 that night, what's that military time? Around 22:30, 24 would be midnight, so 10:30. So around 10:30 that night, Lawson called his father in Crowley, Texas, telling him about the argument and that he was coming to stay until the situation cooled down. At around 11:54, Lawson left to make the 3-hour drive to his father's in his silver Ford F-150. Around 12:30 that night, Brandon called his brother Kyle for help after running out of gas on Route 277 between San Angelo and Bronte, Texas. During the call, Lawson confessed that 3 people were chasing him out of town. A little while later, Kyle, along with his wife and child, drove to Lawson's house and retrieved a fuel container. At 12:50 a.m., Lawson called 911 to tell the responder that he had run out of gas and needed the police. At several points during the call, Lawson seemed incoherent, stating, "Yes, I'm in the middle of a field. Pull some guys over right here toward Abilene on both sides, and my truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. The guy's chasing to the woods. Please hurry." A few minutes later, a trucker called 911 to report Lawson's truck parked haphazardly in the middle of the road. Lawson made several more calls, but after 1:19 a.m., all calls went straight to Brandon's voicemail. Around 1:30 a.m., a sheriff's deputy arrived on the scene to find the car abandoned, and Brandon had presumably wandered into the woods, vanishing without a trace. So update, In February of 22, some clothing items were found and some remains were found just off the highway where Brendan disappeared. That was almost a year, just over a year ago now. This is March of 2023. So it's been just over a year and nothing's for certain, but we're pretty sure that's Brendan's remains. So we still don't really know what happened to him, but if that is his remains, at least his family gets the sense of closure that they found his body and know that he didn't just cease to exist like a lot of these people did. With that, let's get into the next one. Tara Calico. On the morning of Tuesday, September 20th, 1988, Tara Lee Calico left her house in Belen, New Mexico at around 9:30 that morning to take her daily bike ride along Road 47. The trip was usually accompanied by her mother, Patty Dole, but Dole stopped riding after feeling unsafe by a potential stalker on the roadway. You would think if you didn't feel safe on that roadway that you wouldn't allow your teenage daughter to be on that roadway anymore either. It seems weird that you would stop going, but you would let her keep going. I'm not here to criticize the parents. She probably didn't think that. Well, obviously, no, f that. She obviously thought a lot of it. She was uncomfortable enough and felt unsafe enough for her to say, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore, but you can. No, I'm not going to let her off the hook that easily. No, you should have. If you didn't feel safe on the roadway by yourself, you damn sure should not have let your daughter be on that roadway alone. Come on, do better. After the incident, she advised Tara to bring Mace along with her on the rides to be safe, but unfortunately, Calico turned down the idea. Another stupid decision. That doesn't make sense to me. Why would you give her the option to take Mace? Don't give her the option. Hand her the mace and say, you're going to take this on your rides. I'm your parent. You're going to take this. Like, no, it's not optional. On the morning she disappeared, Tara told her mother to go and look for her if she wasn't home by noon. Lunchtime rolled around and Tara wasn't home yet, prompting Patty to scour the bike path looking for her. When she was nowhere to be found, Dole quickly called the local police. Upon the police investigation, pieces of Calico's Sony Walkman and a cassette player were found along the road she biked down, items that Dole believed Tara dropped to mark her trail. Several passersby saw Calico riding on the bike trail, but her bike was never found. No one came forward with witness details on an abduction, although several people saw a light-colored truck following closely behind Calico in the moments before she seemingly vanished into thin air. In June of 1989, a photo of a young girl and boy tied up in the back of a van was found in the parking lot of a convenience store in Port St. Joe, Florida. The woman who found the picture alleges it was in a parking space where a white windowless Toyota van had been parked and that the van was driven by a man in his 30s, but unfortunately the man has never been identified. Police reports claim the identity of the boy in the photo, although it was ruled out after his remains were found around 75 miles from where the boy disappeared, but the girl is still to this day suspected to be Tara Calico. She was officially declared dead in autumn of 1998. So again, I can't stress this enough. If your kids go out, please give them some kind of protection in case something happens. Every kid has a phone nowadays. Please use location tracking services. Please do it. It's common fucking sense. There's apps you can buy that you can put on their phone that they can't take off, they can't deactivate. That way, no matter where they are, you can always track them down to the street, the corner, the wherever they are. Please use tracking devices. They may cost a little bit of money, but I mean, goddamn, it's worth it to know where your kids are. Brendan Swanson. Brendan Swanson was a 19-year-old student from Marshall, Minnesota who mysteriously vanished shortly after midnight on May 14, 2008. Earlier in the night, Swanson was celebrating the end of the spring semester at Minnesota West Community and Technical College's Canby campus with his friends. Swanson was seen at multiple parties consuming alcohol but didn't seem to be visibly intoxicated. Just before midnight, Swanson made the 30-mile trip home. He called his parents just before 2 a.m. to tell them he had run his Chevy Lumina into a ditch and he needed them to pick him up. Brandon's parents, Brian and Annette Swanson, then drove out to where Brandon was, keeping in constant contact the whole time. Brandon flashed his lights to help his parents find his location to no avail. After several hang-ups, Brandon gave up and told his parents he was leaving the car to walk towards city lights he believed to be a small town nearby named Lind. Brandon told his father to meet him in the parking lot of a local bar in Lind, which Brian began heading towards. Shortly after 2:30 a.m., Brandon suddenly yelled, "Oh shit," and remained silent for the remainder of the call until his parents hung up and immediately tried to call him back. Brandon has not been seen or heard from since. So this one didn't have very much information on it. That's about all the information I could find. There was no sign of clothes, of anything he owned, nothing. He just ceased to exist. So this is definitely one of the craziest stories I've ever heard. And May 14th, 2008 was a long time ago. So I don't know if he survived. They think he may have drowned in a local river. His mom doesn't believe so. There's no evidence that he did. They didn't find anything. They brought police dogs out to sniff around the creek or whatever it was near where they believed he drowned at, and the police dogs just went right past it. They didn't really stop, so there's no evidence that he did drown in that river. And also, why would he drown in a river? Like, it just seems weird that he would wander off into the woods. This story is really similar to the Brandon Lawson story, and I get them confused a lot. It took me a minute when I was doing the research for this to differentiate. Brandon Swanson was from Minnesota. Brandon Lawson was from Texas. So the cases were really similar. Two guys who have car accidents or car problems in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, who seemingly just wander off into the woods and vanish, and no one's ever heard or seen from them. Brian Shaffer. On the evening of March 31st, 2006, Brian Shaffer, a 27-year-old med student, prepares for a night out to celebrate the end of finals week. Before meetings with his friends, Brian goes out to eat at a local Outback steakhouse with his father, Randy Shaffer. During the dinner, Randy notices that Brian looks tired from studying but allows him to go out anyways. At around 9:30 that night, Brian meets up with his friend William Clint Florence at a popular college bar named the Ugly Tuna Saloona. Brian and Clint start off the night by taking a few shots before bar hopping closer to downtown Columbus, Ohio. Later, they meet up with Meredith Reed at a bar in downtown, where after another shot, she drives them back to the Ugly Tuna Saloona to finish off the night. So this is where the night takes a really weird turn. Once they get back to the Ugly Tuna Saloona, this is where Brian gets separated from his friends, and the night starts to get really hazy. He's seen throughout the rest of the night on CCTV coming up the escalator and again in the lobby talking to two college-age girls. Around 2 o'clock a.m., the bar closes and Brian is nowhere to be found. It's not really out of character for Brian to disappear after a night of heavy drinking, considering his apartment was only a few blocks away from the Ugly Tuna, and he had a lot to drink, but his friends wait for him outside and he never shows. They call him repeatedly but give up after a while and head home, again assuming Brian just walked home. In the days after Brian disappears, his family try to contact him further, but again, he never answers. On the 3rd of April, Brian's girlfriend Alexis Wagner goes to the airport to meet Brian for a planned trip to Miami, Florida, but he never shows for that either. Brian's father officially reported him missing later that day, but he was never seen or heard from again. So as I said in the video last week, there's a lot of theories as to what happened to Brian, but the one that most everyone can agree on is that he's alive and he's living under some assumed identity somewhere else. So what I didn't mention in the story, but I did mention in the video last week, was that in 2008, Brian Shaffer's dad was out in the yard cleaning up after a big storm and a tree fell on him and killed him, and he never got to find out what happened to Brian that day in the Ugly Tuna Saloona. But more to the point of, in the days and weeks after Brian's dad passed, there is a memorial posted online where you can check in and send your condolences and things like that. And there was one that was left in the memorial that said, "To Brian, love, Dad," and it said location U.S. Virgin Islands, assuming that Brian was still alive and he had actually disappeared that night on purpose and started a new life in the U.S. Virgin Islands, leaving his fiancee Alexis or his girlfriend Alexis behind, and his father and all his friends. So because of that post where he said, "To Dad, love, Brian, U.S. Virgin Islands," or whatever. So after the memorial incident, a lot of people assumed that it was true that Brian disappeared on purpose and was living in the U.S. Virgin Islands. But the police looked into it and tracked the post down to a public computer in a public library in Columbus, Ohio, right down the street from where Brian disappeared. So it turns out it was actually just a really sick hoax that somebody thought that was funny to say that. I don't really understand what your thought process would be to do something like that. That's genuinely just not funny. But, you know, people are even in 2006, people were trolls and people are just incredibly stupid, so it's not really much of a surprise at this point. So stay tuned for the video next week. The topic's going to be a little bit different, but I think it's going to be equally as cool. If you enjoyed this topic, please stick around for next week's video. The content will be a little bit different, but equally as interesting. So we're getting more into pop culture for next week's topic, a little more away from like true crime and stuff. Well, it's still in the realm of true crime, just not like disappearances. Not the exact same thing that we've been doing today, but stay tuned for that this time next week. So I'm recording this like a week later. I put the same shirt on because I was slick gonna try to like convince y'all that this was the same day, but I don't even care anymore. I just finished editing the video. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Hit the bell for more notifications. So the videos will be coming out bi-weekly. Next topic will be a little bit different than this one, but I appreciate you guys. Have a good week. Yeah, it's Tuesday. Have a good week. Appreciate you guys. Be good to be good at it. Peace out. Peace out. Peace out. Peace. Bye. Bye. See you later.